Hey, Pastor, greetings. Welcome to step three of the Rise series. And I just want to briefly go over what this is, just kind of get you oriented just a little bit, if you find that helpful. So, step three is letting go of the past. And obviously, in order to move to a new future, people have to let go of the past. But this does more than it really tries to reframe setbacks as a platform, a base for accelerating your progress into the future. So, a little bit of a coaching angles and theology in here as well. God's providence and really some healing that goes on in this message as well. So again, the big purpose here is to help people let go of the past. But in terms of beliefs, it's to reframe the past, especially past setbacks, as God set up. Okay, something very familiar to us all. And then the emotional work you're doing in this message is to ease some of the hurts about the past because everybody's there. Has some of that, us pastors too, right? So we want to kind of provide some emotional healing in the process of this message, as well as providing hope uh, through understanding that God was there all along and had a plan for this. This was part of his plan. Okay, and then as always, this is following the seeker sensitive sermon format. So start with the problems that are happening and dig deep in the biblical text and make application and have some applications in this message, but feel free to add your own either on the slides or on the spot. And as you're preaching it, this is about you applying God's word. And as I have taught in this section, you really want to make them understand emotionally that you get them, that you know where they live, that you know what they're struggling with. And this is just so important. I keep emphasizing it to really live in their shoes for a bit and let them know, oh, he gets me, she gets me, right? As you're preaching it. So, so don't rush over this. You want to really activate their hurt, in the moment, right? About their setbacks, their frustrations, maybe in their anger, disappointment with God. So that's what we do in this section, and then of course we provide this key insight, which is usually about what God is doing, what God has done that shifts the framework, right, and opens the door for them to believe, right, to have faith, give their lives to Christ, deepen their faith in the Lord. And so that's a key part too. That's the good news. And then that good news and the reframe then results in some changes in their lives. And so in this sermon, we use the story of Paul's conversion experience in Acts 9. And so it starts with just, the idea that some setbacks we cause, others setbacks other people cause. And I just wanted to make this point here because this is a story of oppression, right? From the standpoint of the Christians, but from the standpoint of Paul, he caused it. So, whatever you want to do with that, there are people who just unfortunately look at their setbacks as other people's faults. There are other people filled with guilt, resentment, and about themselves, disappointment, etc. And so we have to help them understand that usually there's various things involved in our setbacks. And so, again, however you want to, kind of weave back and forth with this. But this pretty much is a Paul focus. And so it's really more the idea that this is a setback, that Paul, a setback in quotes that Paul caused in his own life that of course ended up being set up for his comeback and his true purpose in life. So context, I always say this, but if we start with the Bible, whether we start with the Bible or not, we have to give some background. We cannot assume people know anything about the Bible, particularly when we're trying to reach the unsaved and the unchurched. So you can say as much as you want about this. I wouldn't say a lot, frankly, just a little bit of background here. that a great persecution arose. You can give a little historical context if you want. And then it goes through this scriptures, this passage about Paul or Saul, at the time. Obviously, you have to explain the Saul Paul thing, and I assume people know that. And then, it just goes through the passage, or at least the descriptions of what happened. I draw from obviously X9 and Paul's recounting of it as well, just to tell the story. Try not in these kind of messages to overload people with scripture. So I skip some of the words in the passages, etc. We're not teaching the Bible, we're transforming lives. So we want to be true to the word, exposit the word, but not, go through every single word in the passage, right? So and then a moment, right, where he falls, where life changes, the thing he was so committed to, he gets slammed to the ground, right, and blinded, right, and so there's that passage, and then where he ended up, right, and being led, to Damascus, and then sitting there. And this is a moment I would pause in because now we're doing some emotional work. We're finishing up this problem section, and we're really trying to help them get this moment in his life where everything has changed. Everything has changed. And so the key to rising then now, this is the insight, like that middle section, the key insight, right? Where we're trying to reframe now and help them see their past setbacks in a different way. And so the way I've picture this is you can see your setback, leading to a negative future, continuing to go downhill, or you can see your setback as a setup for a comeback. And the good news today is that God has a plan, right? That your setback is a setup for a comeback because God has a plan, right? He says, this man, talking about Saul, Paul, is my chosen instrument, right, to proclaim my name to the Gentiles. So this is the good news. This is the shift. The beginning of the reframe establishes the biblical context for this reframe, which is that all along. This is all part of God's plan, right? And so, therefore, how you let go of the past. And so these are, you can make your own points. These are mine. Be connected with God's messengers. I have that in there. Back in the day, I might have said something a little different here. Could have emphasized the vision. He's blind, but he's seen on a different level, and you can make that point, and change this out, add a point, as well. So whatever you want to do with this passage, whatever the Lord leads you to do, you can do. I put this in here because people are so disconnected from the church now that I want to kind of continuously let them know, that you got to be plugged in, that you can't do this all alone. That you can't just watch online. If you're watching here, you got to be part of a fellowship, right? You got to be part of, and that God sends pastors, right? And so if you want to put pastors in there, whatever language you want to use, but in this context, in this post-COVID, day, this is an opportunity to help people see that God sends them someone. I will give you pastors. And so, and that's part of what church growth is about, right? So that's the point. I mean, you can make other points, like I said, the whole spiritual vision thing, insight, like there's a lot obviously in the word we can talk about. And I think it'd be perfectly fine to add a second, point from this passage, right? And so then there's that passage, this man is my chosen instrument. And I skipped the whole controversy, around Saul and, and Ananias being afraid because I don't want to lose the thread and kind of get off on other topics, right? And then that's starting to talk about Ananias, and I want to keep the focus on Paul so people keep the focus for themselves. And so this is where, the good news, pastors can help you see what your actual purpose is and what you're going through. And you're trying to figure it out on your own, but God can give us insight, through the word, like a moment like this, or, in service, if we sit down and talk, and, programs, ministries that we have, etc. Right? So to help you see what you can't see in the midst of the storm you're in. And then the third point, where Paul then makes the shift that we're asking them to make, that God is, telling them to make, to let go of the past. And he so let go of it that at once, right? He gets some discipling, he gets some learning, and then he starts to preach, right? He doesn't wait till he's an expert. He embraces God's future, which is now the present, rapidly. And with my training in psychology, like I could do some more things with that. Like we resist so much and waste so much time, lose so much, opportunity because we're fighting the change that God has for us. So certainly feel free to, make those points, whatever other points God has you make, from this passage. Again, though, keep it tight, right? Remember your purpose, to help people let go of the past. And so then we're at the moment of truth. Will you do it? Will you let go and embrace God's plan? And so then I jump to Paul's conclusion, in Philippians, which we all know, right? And it's obviously this image of a track meet. And so again, using this sort of graphic visuals that I'm encouraging us to use, to really focus on that, straining toward what is ahead. They're not looking behind, they're straining, eyes on the prize, which, is where I would close this message, um, looking forward and calling them to seek the goal, the high calling. Do you, in this call, in this slide at this point, you're in spiritual warfare. You're healing. People spirit is moving, like that moment in this sermon, in the service where this is it, right? And so, and then you call them to whatever you want to call them to. I have this generic sort of invitation. When I was passing, I always had a first step, or third step is to, respond to this message and come forward for prayer for healing, laying on the hands, whatever you do, you know, do it. All right. Hope this helps. God bless.